Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and today we have part five of my free agent grades. Going over just more of the free agents. We're probably going to take probably three more videos at least, and they keep on coming. So I'm just going to keep cranking these out for you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the views. I've been getting like 300 views a video, which has been great, but I do only have 87 subscribers, so feel free to subscribe if you like the content, as well as like the video. I haven't gotten too many likes, so I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you for that so far, though. And let's get right into the first signing of this video. Anthony Walker Jr. to the Dolphins at $4.25 million a year. I think it's a fine deal. Guy that kind of had his career hurt by injuries, was pretty successful when he was healthy and had, a couple good seasons, but coming off injury and not having much play time recently definitely hurts him there, and is likely the reason the contract is so low. But the Dolphins, as we talked about in last video, definitely needed the help at linebacker. So I give it a B minus because it's a nice kind of prove it deal on a defense that actually did play very well early on and has retained a decent amount of pieces aside from their defensive line. So they're making moves, and I think a B minus for Anthony Walker is fair. Azeez Alshidi, I believe is how you say it, gets a B. This is a guy who had a breakout season last year, and he had a very good season. Now, I do think that it could be a little bit much money for just having one really good season. And it was when he finally got a fair opportunity. He was just okay on the 49ers. He also had to split more time with all the talents that were over there. He finally gets a shot on the Titans, and I believe he was near leading the league in combined tackles. At the very least, he was up there. So definitely an off-ball, more coverage linebacker, but I think it'll be a nice addition with the pass rushing linebackers and edge rushers that the Texans have signed so far. DeMeco Ryans, if you watched yesterday's video, I really struggled to remember his name. DeMeco Ryans, though, obviously the head coach of the Texans. 3 years, $34 million, 11.3 a year. Again, I do think that that's a little high, but I like the signing, and I like them just bolstering. Like, the Texans are looking like they could be one of the best defenses, especially with the signing of, let's name him, Danielle Hunter. There was the other guy, Danico Autry, and then Will Anderson's there too. And I believe they signed somebody else. They've made a lot of signings, and I think a lot of good moves. So Azeez Alshidi gets a B. Mike Onuoha, C+. I think it's a lot of money. I've kind of always mentioned that keeping a guy on the same team, especially if they've been good with the team, keeping a familiar face around for the locker room is very important. Not that I know that Mike Onuoha is a huge locker room presence or anything, but I always think that keeping a locker room together is going to be better than ripping it apart, unless you have a guy like Chase Claypool that just loves to ruin locker rooms. But $19 million a year, again, I think that's kind of what the price is for a guy like Onuoha is now. And again, I do like keeping him around. I just think it's a little more than he should have been paid, but I don't know what the Patriots really would have done otherwise. So I just give it a C+. You could convince me to a B- too, but gut feeling was a C+, and that's what we're going with for Mike Onuoha on his re-signing to the Patriots for $19 million a year. Noah Fant gets a B-. I think I originally thought that this was a little bit worse, and then I looked and I was like, his production really hasn't been that good the past 2 years, but he has the potential, and it's a re-signing. I just think it's a little too much money. The one that I can think of immediately is Cole Kmet. He got a 4-year, $50 million, so obviously more money, $2 million more a year, but his production was much higher last year. He got upwards of 700, 800, almost 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. Noah Fant got like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he's making roughly the same amount of money. There's obviously other examples that you could come up with. The Bears just signed Gerald Everett to a 2-year, $14 million deal, so significantly less money there, $7 million less over the course of 2 years. And I think Gerald Everett I think you could make a big argument that he's a better player than Noah Fant. I guess Noah Fant's younger, so you do have that too. But I get a B-. Again, you get some bonus points for me when you keep a player that's been around and not bad, at least some sort of a positive outcome to the team. So he gets a B minus for a 2-year, $21 million contract. B plus for Aaron Brewer to the Dolphins. Another position in need for the Dolphins in this one. And I think it's a really fair price. Aaron Brewer was actually one of my favorites. Bears, big Bears fan here, are in a big need of a center right now. We just signed Ryan Bates from the Buffalo Bills. He was the backup, and we just signed him. He's being paid $4 million a year. Mitch Morse, the starter that was over there, is getting $5 million a year. I think with the age of Aaron Brewer and being a starter and having some success, to get only $7 million, I think he's actually underpaid there, and I think they got great value for him. He still has more to prove, but I like the potential there. So I do like the signing for the Dolphins, and they get a B plus with the 3-year, $21 million contract, as well as Jacoby Brissett to the Patriots. If you watched my predicting where every free agent quarterback is going to go, if you watch that video, it's been almost flawless so far. We still don't know what's going to happen on Justin Fields, and my answer for him was actually very vague because I had no idea where all the other quarterbacks were going to land. I guess I did have some idea because most of them I got right. But Jacoby Brissett makes a lot of sense to the Patriots. I think he's probably your best actual bridge quarterback. Obviously, you'd make the argument for like Russell Wilson's and Cousins, but those guys are still, I think you could say they're starters. They're not just a washed up guy that's going to help transition to a young quarterback. Obviously, if you draft a quarterback, they are going to help transition, but Kirk Cousins believes he can play for 4 more years, and so do the Falcons. And then Russell Wilson, people believe that he can play a few more years as well. So Jacoby Brissett, he's kind of that, probably the most well-seasoned veteran, kind of that journeyman guy who bounces around to teams. The Patriots have the 3rd pick and have a very good opportunity, whether it be trading for a guy like Justin Fields, who still could be available. If they traded for him, Justin Fields could sit behind Brissett or maybe just learn something, get an opportunity, and have a nice backup in Brissett. Or if you wanted to draft a guy that doesn't have as much experience like Drake May or J.J. McCarthy for whatever reason, and have the quarterback sit, you could also do that. So I like Jacoby Brissett, and I like the price too. 1 year, $8 million. He is quite literally the definition of a bridge quarterback, getting $8 million to be there for a year to help the team transition. So again, B plus. I like the signing. Yeturgros Matos, one of the lowest grades of this video, a D plus. I don't think he's worth the $9 million. I think it's too much money. He goes to the 49ers, and looking at their roster, it almost seemed like it's going to be a depth piece because of how many defensive linemen they've signed and all the moves that they've been making. So I just think $9 million for 2 years is a lot for a depth piece. So I don't know what they have plans for as far as rotations. I don't really think that they have the money to spend. I guess in a sense it would, or in a world it would make sense because they are in this win now sort of deal. So you need to spend your money when you can and try to make moves to win. So using as much of the cap space is going to be important, especially having a rookie quarterback and probably one of the cheapest contracts ever for how well he's played. But D plus for the 49ers are really, I mean, I don't hate Yeturgros Matos, but I just don't love the play from him for that money. I think it's too much money. So he gets a D plus to the 49ers, as well as Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks getting older. You look $4 million average per year. At the beginning of the video, we talked about Anthony Walker, how he had some problems with the Browns, and looking back on it, maybe I factored that too much into the grade, but you're quite literally paying Jordan Hicks, who's 31, he might be 32 by the time the season starts. You're paying him $8 million. He hasn't really played very well. I know I listen to some Minnesota sports news. I also do like the Vikings, and never really very happy with Jordan Hicks' performances over there. And so I don't think this is a great signing, especially when you had Anthony Walker, who was in the building and a player for the team, consistently, and just kind of got ridden with injuries. I would have liked to just see him come back, have a younger guy that can be more of the future. I would have just paid him. He got a 1 year, but you just pay him a 2 year, $4 million a year, and then you'd be much better off, or maybe not much better off, but just better off in my opinion. I also don't look at the Browns as like this Super Bowl contender. I know it was a fun story last season, and they're going to be getting Nick Chubb back, and Deshaun Watson's coming back. Whether you think highly of that, but I don't know. It was a very weird signing for me, and I don't think it was a great choice. So I had to give that one a D plus. Noah Brown, I really like this one. Back to the Texans. We saw how successful their wide receiver core was last year. Specifically, Nico Collins having a bit of a breakout season. Tank Dell showing how talented he can be as a young receiver. And then Noah Brown was a really nice third. Kind of thinking about him in Cincinnati as like you've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and then Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's that guy who was definitely a little better earlier in his career, and Noah Brown hasn't been as good, but he's been there when you need him, and I like it for only $5 million. I think it's good, kind of a prove it year. If you want to keep him around, you get him again, keep him in the room to help learn with CJ, and if he falls off, you're done with him, and if he doesn't, if he plays well, you can sign him to a longer deal later. But I like Noah Brown back. Again, I like when players are able to stay with their team, and especially for what's been a fairly cheap contract. We'll talk about some other wide receivers as they come off the board in some of these future videos. But one I know personally, Darnell Mooney, getting a 3-year, $39 million contract. And if you look at the production, technically, based on the statistics, it hasn't been much better. I'm a big Darnell Mooney fan. But again, the price, I think $5 million is very fair. You go back to your team, you get a B. Zach Moss is a B+. I think it's a big signing for the Bengals. I had this as an A-, and then I looked and I was like, Joe Mixon did really play pretty well, and I didn't want to factor in Joe Mixon leaving into the grade. But when I initially saw this, I had kind of remembered, that Joe Mixon is just kind of that above average, just kind of like he'll breach into that like top 10 running back conversation, but I don't think anybody, would have him as a lock to be a top 5. I guess he's probably in the top 10 conversation, but you could definitely leave him out of it. And Zach Moss came in when Jonathan Taylor was down last year and had a great season when he got the opportunities. I believe he started 8 games and played in either 12 or 14. And he had about 800 yards rushing and almost 200 yards receiving. So, you're breaching 1,000 yards, only starting 8 games, playing in, I think it was either 12 or 14. He had a good season when he got the opportunity, and I think for only $4 million a year, that's a very low price, in my opinion, for what he was showing in the little bursts that he showed last season. So the Bengals' big thing is they save a lot of money here, moving from Mixon to Zach Moss. So it's a lot of where the B+ comes in, because originally I thought it could have been an upgrade, and I went, Joe Mixon is a good back, so I can't confidently say that it's an upgrade, but I think you're not really downgrading as much as you might think. You're also getting younger at the position, so I give a B+ to Zach Moss to the Bengals for $4 million a year. Damen Lewis, I'm going to be quite honest, I don't know a whole lot about him. I know he played on the Seahawks. I know he went to LSU. I know he was regarded as a good offensive lineman by them, pretty good. Little bit of an issue with penalties at the beginning, but he only had 1 penalty or maybe 2 penalties last year from the little looking around that I did. And it seems like he's been just a fine offensive lineman, a fairly reliable guy. And the Panthers do have a big need at this. I just don't know a whole lot about Damen Lewis. So I gave it a C+ because, again, you're filling a big need. Panthers' biggest problem last year was their offensive line. You could probably name other things too, but Bryce Young not having time to get the ball out was definitely the biggest problem. So 4-year, $53 million seems kind of average at this point. 10 to 15 million, somewhere in that range, maybe 12 to 15 seems like what the decent guards are getting. So or tackle, or tackles are obviously getting more money, but I like what Damen Lewis has to offer. I just don't know a whole lot about him, and the Panthers need offensive line, so he gets a C+ for me. And then the last one of this video is Tyrod Taylor. I just get a C because I would have liked, I'm interested to see how the quarterback situation works out, because there was people that thought that Rodgers is going to be there, Zach Wilson is going to sit behind him and learn, and hopefully be better when he comes back to play. And the Jets had a good defense last year, and presumably will have a good one this year. And they're just kind of hoping for the best. And now you have Tyrod Taylor, who I think is a more reliable backup, but you either have to keep three quarterbacks on the roster or let Zach Wilson go to the practice squad and hope that he doesn't get nabbed off the practice squad. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work. And I don't really know what's going to happen moving forward here. So I guess they're either going to get rid of him, Zach Wilson, or they're going to keep three quarterbacks, which doesn't seem like the brightest move. So 2-year, $18 million, again, $9 million, I think is fine for Tyrod Taylor. I liked what I've seen from him in recent years, but I just don't really understand the move. This move really makes it look like they are all in on this one, and maybe he gets another season of Aaron Rodgers, and then this is just your more reliable backup, so you don't have to feel like the season is over if he gets injured, which I don't know. I don't love the move. I think it's probably the best move they could have made if you wanted just a backup, but I can't confidently say that this is the best move for them, especially because now there's really no option to draft a quarterback on a flyer or make any sort of move for another quarterback. So I give it a C. I think $9 million might be a little bit too much, but it also is what a lot of the backups are getting paid. I guess, for instance, like Gardner Minshew. I think Gardner Minshew would fit into the Jets offense pretty well. He signed for $12 million. I think Tyrod Taylor will be fine, but just I like Gardner Minshew a lot more than I like Tyrod Taylor. So for the price, I'm not very high on it, but that's fine. Tyrod Taylor to the Jets gets a C for me. And that's going to be it. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day.